In Ravenswood, nestled between dense woods and a forgotten cemetery, lived Sandra, a teenage girl with a penchant for the eerie. Her parents often worked late, leaving her alone in their creaky old Victorian house. One moonless night, as Sandra sat in her dimly lit room, the shadows seemed to dance with a life of their own. The clock struck midnight, and an unnatural chill crept through the air. Sandra, sensing something awry, checked the locks on the doors and windows. Her unease heightened as she noticed an old family portrait on the wall. The eyes of her ancestors seemed to follow her every move. A faint whisper echoed through the hallway, and Sandra's heart raced. She cautiously ventured downstairs, the floorboards groaning beneath her. In the living room, the antique clock ticked with an ominous rhythm, and a single candle flickered on the coffee table. Shadows played tricks on the walls, forming grotesque figures that seemed to taunt her. A distant howl pierced the silence, and Sandra's nerves tightened. Suddenly, the power went out, plunging the house into an inky darkness. Her breath caught as she fumbled for her phone, the only source of light in the oppressive blackness. She hesitated to call her parents, fearing they wouldn't believe her. As Sandra moved through the house, strange whispers and phantom footsteps echoed around her. The once familiar rooms now felt like a labyrinth of uncertainty. The air was thick with an otherworldly presence, and every creak and groan seemed like a message from the beyond. In the ancient mirror of the hallway, Sandra caught a fleeting glimpse of a pale face staring back at her. Her own reflection morphed into a twisted version, its eyes hollow and its grin malevolent. She stumbled backward, realizing the mirror had stood in her family for generations, witnessing secrets untold. Desperation set in as Sandra sought refuge in her room. The walls seemed to close in around her, and a haunting melody played softly, though she knew not from where. She clutched her ears, trying to drown out the haunting sounds, but the spectral symphony persisted. A sudden gust rattled the window panes, and Sandra glimpsed figures lurking in the shadows outside. Wisps of fog curled around the trees, forming shapes that mirrored her deepest fears. The spectral figures whispered her name, calling her to join them in the eternal night. Summoning courage, Sandra ventured into the attic, a place she had avoided for years. Dust-covered relics and forgotten memories greeted her as she searched for answers. Amongst the ancient belongings, she discovered a weathered journal, revealing a dark family secret, a pact made with entities from the other side. As the truth unfolded, the house seemed to rebel against her presence. Unseen forces tugged at her, trying to pull her into the abyss. Sandra realized she was the key to breaking the curse that had haunted her family for generations. With newfound determination, she confronted the shadows that lurked within the house. As the first light of dawn painted the sky, Sandra recited an incantation from the ancient journal, banishing the malevolent spirits that had tormented her. As the last echoes of the otherworldly whispers faded away, Sandra stood victorious, but forever changed. The house, once a prison of the paranormal, now stood silent. Her parents returned to find a daughter who bore the weight of a family's dark history, a history she had courageously confronted in a single terrifying night. The old man, John, shuffled through the dimly lit hallway, his eyes weary from the weight of grief. Earlier that day, he had said his final goodbyes to his beloved wife, Eleanor, as she peacefully slipped away in the daylight. Now, as night fell, an eerie silence settled over their once warm and comforting home. The ticking of the antique grandfather clock echoed through the empty rooms, each chime a haunting reminder of the solitude that surrounded him. John hesitated before the closed door of their bedroom, his trembling hand gripping the handle. As he slowly opened it, a cold gust of wind brushed against his face, making him shiver. The room held a lingering scent of Eleanor's favorite perfume, intensifying the ache in John's chest. The bed, once shared by decades of love and laughter, now felt vast and desolate. He glanced at the empty side, his heart sinking with the realization that he was truly alone. Attempting to distract himself, John descended the creaking staircase, the wooden steps groaning beneath his weight. The living room, adorned with family portraits and memories, felt like a gallery of ghosts. Shadows danced on the walls as he moved through the space, contemplating the void left by Eleanor's absence. A sudden, unexplainable chill gripped the air as John wandered into the kitchen. The flickering light of a lone candle cast eerie shadows, distorting familiar shapes into grotesque figures. He felt a presence, an otherworldly energy, as if the house itself mourned the departure of its longtime residents. The wind outside howled like a lament, and the branches of the ancient trees scratched at the window panes, creating unsettling patterns on the walls. John, now more aware of his solitude than ever, felt a strange compulsion to check on the attic, a place he hadn't ventured into for years. He ascended the narrow staircase, the steps protesting with every movement. As he reached the top, the air thickened and the dim light revealed forgotten relics from the past. Old trunks and dusty furniture were shrouded in mystery, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to whisper forgotten secrets. John's hand trembled as he reached for the attic door. With a creak, it swung open, revealing a room frozen in time. His eyes widened as he caught sight of an ancient mirror, its surface reflecting not only his own worn face but a flicker of movement behind him. A cold sweat broke on John's forehead as he turned, expecting to find his late wife standing there. Instead, the room remained empty, but an unsettling presence lingered. He could almost hear Eleanor's laughter, a sound etched in his memory, echoing through the silent attic. The night deepened, and John retreated to the solitude of his study. The ticking of the clock became an ominous symphony, each note resonating with the echoes of lost time. As he sat in his favorite armchair, memories of Eleanor flooded his mind, accompanied by an unsettling feeling that he was being watched. The study seemed to shrink in the encroaching darkness. Shadows morphed into sinister shapes, and the walls echoed with phantom footsteps. John's heart pounded as he questioned his sanity, grappling with the thin veil separating reality from the supernatural. In the dead of night, he heard whispers, indistinct voices that seemed to weave through the fabric of the house. The weight of grief and the surreal atmosphere pressed down on him, creating a palpable tension that hung in the air. As the first light of dawn pierced through the curtains, John felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The night, haunted by phantoms and memories, had finally come to an end. Exhausted and drained, he emerged from the shadows of his own haunted home, forever changed by the harrowing experience of the hardest night in his solitary existence. In the small town of Ravenscroft, nestled deep in the woods, stood a dilapidated house that had long been abandoned. It was a place locals avoided, claiming it harbored a haunting presence. Years ago, a man named Samuel had left for war, leaving his home to decay in solitude. After years on the battlefield, Samuel finally returned, haunted by the ghosts of his past. One stormy night, with thunder echoing through the empty streets, Samuel approached the creaking gates of his childhood home. The rusty hinges groaned as he pushed them open, revealing the overgrown garden and the eerie silhouette of the once grand house against the darkened sky. Inside, dust-covered furniture and faded memories greeted him. Samuel's heart pounded as he ventured deeper, each step echoing through the desolate halls. The air was heavy with the weight of years gone by. A strange stillness enveloped the house, broken only by the occasional howling wind seeping through shattered windows. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Samuel made his way to the living room, where a faded photograph of his family stared back at him. The room seemed frozen in time, memories etched into the walls like silent whispers. As midnight approached, a chilling breeze swept through the house, extinguishing the feeble flames of the candles. Samuel, now in total darkness, strained to hear over the pounding rain outside. Suddenly, an unsettling sound echoed from the depths of the house, a soft, mournful whisper. Haunted by both his wartime experiences and the eerie atmosphere surrounding him, Samuel's nerves frayed. He stumbled upon a hidden door in the rear of the house, a door he never remembered being there. Reluctantly, he opened it, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into an abyss. Descending into the unknown, the air grew colder, and a sense of dread consumed him. He reached the bottom, finding a dimly lit cellar filled with forgotten relics of a bygone era. Old war memorabilia, family heirlooms, and a peculiar chest caught his eye. With trembling hands, Samuel opened the chest, revealing a collection of letters. As he read, the words of his younger self and the letters from loved ones painted a haunting picture of loss and despair. The cellar seemed to breathe with the weight of untold stories. the specters of the past finally emerging from their silent slumber. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness, and the whispers intensified. Shadows materialized, taking form around him. Samuel felt a cold hand on his shoulder, and a spectral voice murmured his name. Overwhelmed with fear, he stumbled backward, desperate to escape the suffocating presence. As he climbed the stairs, the house seemed to protest his departure. Whispers turned into anguished wails, and the shadows contorted in agony. Samuel burst out into the stormy night, the dilapidated house behind him seeming to scream in silent torment. The next morning, as the storm subsided, the townsfolk discovered the house in ruins. It crumbled into itself, as if releasing the trapped souls within. Samuel was never seen again, but locals claimed that on stormy nights, the echoes of his tormented past could still be heard, carried by the wind through the remnants of Ravenscroft.